I want to talk to you about your journey to get to this point, because obviously you didn't start on K2.
Exactly.
You said that you started climbing with your priest?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, if I remember correctly, it was only about 10 years between the time that you actually started climbing and your first expedition to an 8,000 meter peak.
Yeah, exactly.
That's quite fast.
Yeah, it was quite fast. I started normal hiking in the mountains when I was 8, 9 years old, my first rock climbing with 13. And then when I was 23 years old, I tried my first 8,000 meter peak. It was in 1994. We started with Broad Peak. But of course, I did a lot of climbing and mountaineering in the Alps, in the West Alps.
That's true, of course. I mean, and you said that I think Mont Blanc was your highest peak.
Yeah.
So again, that's quite a long, quite a distance.
It's really right, and I'm not a good example to do this way, because maybe better to try 5,000, 6,000 meter peak, 7,000. But it was my big dream to try one time an 8,000 meter peak. I had no idea if I can manage it without bottled oxygen, and if I can stay with such cold temperature. But I did a lot of training. I prepared very well, and finally we started.
So how did you prepare yourself? I mean, did you train with people who were experienced at high altitude, or?
Yeah, of course, you always find the right people if you really want to do something. And we had two friends who were experienced for an 8,000 meter peak. One of them tried already K2 and some other 8,000 meter peaks, and they knew very well about acclimatizing, and we learned really a lot from them, luckily. Yeah.
I just think that's an amazingly short period of time. But it was it after your fifth 8,000 meter peak that you decided to become a professional climber? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. It was at that time I was still working as a nurse.
Right.
And and then I felt that this is really my big passion. After Broad Peak, I had only in my mind how I can manage it to start again for a high mountain. And it was in 2003 after Nanga Parbat when I got the first questions about doing an interview, and I gave some interview because it was just 50-year anniversary of climbing Nanga Parbat. It was an Austrian, Hermann Pohl.
Of course, yes.
And so I got a little bit attention, and with the interviews I got also first requests for slideshows, for presentations, and first sponsorships. And so I thought, now I dare the step to become professional climber. I did not take a big risk, because I thought if I want work, I always find something. So I was relaxed.
Now, is that when you decided or started to dream about all 14 of the 8,000ers, or?
No. It was not at that time. I was focused from one 8,000 meter peak to the next, and finally after Kanchenjunga in 2006, I thought maybe now it's possible to climb all 14 8,000 meter peaks, because Kanchenjunga was quite a very difficult mountain. It's the third highest one, and we had very difficult conditions. We had a lot of luck also, and after that I told to Ralph, to my husband, maybe we could try it, and it was a big wish to stay on each of the highest.
And so you mentioned Ralph. Obviously, your life partners and your climbing partners, but I saw some film footage that Darek did on this last K2 expedition, where I think he did an interview with Ralph, and he was asking him about the first time that you met. That was on Manaslu, was it?
Yeah, exactly. It was on Manaslu in 2002.
Well, according to Ralph, because I don't remember the interview with you, but according to Ralph, he said that you arrived a little bit later at the camp, and you came in and introduced yourself, and I don't know if it was instantaneous or within the first 3 or 4 minutes, he had made a decision that you were going to be his partner. for life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how did you react to that first meeting?
He had this impression in the very first moment. I was really surprised when he told me later, no, I wanted just say hello. I knew Ralph. I knew Ralph from before because he made the Eiger Life climb. So I knew him, and I met him many times on the mountain on Manaslu, and we broke trail together. It was difficult to head on, and so we saw that we worked quite well together, and he was very sympathetic also. And and then after this expedition, he asked me, "Would you like to join me to Kanchenjunga North Face?" And when he asked me this immediately, I said, of course, I join you, of course, and we were a 6-member team, and from 2003 on, I really fell in love with Ralph, and from that time we stayed together.
You stayed together.
Yeah.
Well, it's... A lot of people have commented watching the two of you move together in the mountains. And as you said earlier, and as the introduction also pointed out, it's not that you're just climbing without bottled oxygen. It's that you're climbing, as a 2-person team or a 4-person team. You're not using high-altitude Sherpas, and you're moving your own equipment. Is that as important to you as not using the bottled oxygen?
Yes, it's same important for me. From the very beginning, I thought when we went to Broad Peak, it was clear that I won't climb without bottled oxygen, but also without help of high water. I want to do it really by my own, with my own energy, of course, in a team. But I also thought later on, if I would not be able to climb, for example, Everest or Kanchenjunga or K2 without bottled oxygen, I would choose a smaller mountain, because then it's clear it's not for me. Yeah.
But in all of the expeditions that you've done, I mean, obviously it's worked, but was there ever a time when you were tired enough, weary enough, that you actually thought, I wouldn't mind having a high-altitude porter right now?
Yes, it was twice.
Twice? Only twice?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
One time after I came back from Everest, I was really so tired, and after the summit, Ralph were waiting me at around 8,300 meters, and after the summit we came down until the ABC, and we reached ABC during nighttime, and the last maybe the last 2 hours, I was so tired and the backpack was so heavy that I thought, now if somebody would come to help me, I would give him my backpack, of course.
But luckily nobody did.
Nobody came.
Yeah. When you were talking about the discussion on K2, when Ralph decided to go down and you decided to go up, and obviously you had talked about this before. Is there, I guess you talked about it before, I mean, you must have come to this kind of conclusion. How did you reach this level of maturity as a climbing couple when you were also a life couple?
We had a very specific experience on Annapurna in 2004. We did not know each other very well, and so it was the point when I wanted continuing climbing, because I had a very good gut feeling, and Ralph decided to climb back because for him was no more a good situation. He had the feeling that ice comes down, and so we went separate. But then later on, I was really focused to manage the very difficult, dangerous part quickly, and then I turned back for a certain moment, and I saw, wow, now Ralph also continue climbing, and this gave me a lot of stress, and I felt really responsible at that moment for Ralph. And later on, everything went well. Luckily, we reached the summit of Annapurna, and we came back safe. But later on, we had a big how I can say discussion. We talked many times about this situation, that in the future we have to to really to listen to our own feeling. And so we agreed if each of us stay healthy and can manage it back in a safe way, then we can go separate also.
Right. But if one of you was ill or had altitude sickness or
Of course, then it's no question that we help each other, and there's no question that we come down together, of course. Not only with Ralph and me, also with
another team
people.
member.
Yeah, of course.
Speaking of team members, Vasily and Maksut, yeah. You had climbed with them before, had you?
Not in the same team, but we met each other many times on the high mountains already in Kathmandu, and I met first time on Nanga Parbat.
That was your first time climbing with them?
Yeah.
And how was that?
It was really a funny story because I came to Nanga Parbat. I was already acclimatized from Kanchenjunga, and there was a big Kazakh team there, and I shared my permit with Italians. And so when I climbed up the Kinshofer wall up to Camp 2, establish Camp 2, there was one Kazakh man came down and he wanted to take my backpack to help me up, and he wondered that I'm alone here and what's going on. And he was quite angry because I didn't give him my backpack, of course. And so this was the first contact with the Kazakh team.
So did you work it out somehow?
In Camp 2, nobody noticed that I'm here, and there was also one Spanish climber, Iñaki Ochoa. Right. With him I could talk a little bit, and I heard that they spoke about, we are 6 members. There were 5 Kazakh climbers and Iñaki. We are 6 climbers, and tomorrow we have to break trail to Camp 3 to manage it somehow like this. And then I counted 5 Kazakhs and 1 Spanish. And what about me? They did
That's
not
7,
count.
Right?
We are 7 here. But then in the next morning, they started at 8 o'clock. They broke trail. The first stepped out from the trail. The next had to break trail. And I was just behind. And then when I was on the turn to break trail, the one Kazakh behind me went out from the trail and went in front to do it again. And
he took your spot, in other words.
Yeah, exactly. And they did not accept that I'm also here and I want to do the same job. And this was the only moment when I really got a little bit angry. I thought it's impossible. They
weren't respecting you.
They ignore me more or less. And then I went out again from the trail, and I was really lucky. I have to say that I was very well acclimatized, and so I had it on and broke trail up to Camp 3.
So you broke you went in front of just the person in front of you, or you went in front of all of them?
No, I went in front of all of them and broke trail.
Was it?
Yeah.
Was it Dennis Arutko on that?
Exactly. There was Dennis, there was Maksut, Vasily, and a lot of other Kazakhs.
Right. So you broke trail for Dennis Arutko. Perfect.
Just for up to Camp 3. And you know, the funny thing I have to tell it, when they came up to Camp 3, then they asked me, what's your name? This was the first con. I was so happy about that. They asked me where I am. So,
so you existed.
Yeah.
It was some kind of initiation process, I guess.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I noticed in the sort of the arc of your climbing career up to this point, you started early on with 1 expedition to an 8,000 meter peak per year, and then you were up to 2, and then I think 1 year you did 3 in 1 year. That's a lot of time at altitude. And how did you sort of how did you train your body and your mind to do that?
At home I do a lot of stamina, endurance training, long distances. I go for running in the mountains, mountain biking. Of course, we do a lot of alpine climbing in Switzerland, rock climbing, ski touring in winter, long distances, ice climbing. So every day I do a lot of training and I prepare very carefully. And my body, my training gives me the confidence to be able to go to the high mountains. This makes me very calm, and I'm very much focused during the training to my next goal, to the next big mountain. Mm-hmm. And I'm always quite motivated to do a lot of training.
And you're still motivated?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, because one would almost think, it wouldn't be too unusual after having done what you've done that you might, I don't know, do something else, take a break. But last year you went to Nuptse.
Last spring I went to Nuptse. Mountaineering became always more and more my big passion, and I really felt that this is my way of living. Mountains are completely mine, especially the high mountains, and I cannot stay without. And I think this will remain until the very end, as I told before.
Yeah, it's part of you. I just have to read something that you wrote in your blog when you came down off of Nuptse. I guess you were in base camp. You said, "Last night, David, Ralph, and I sat, tired, but full of incredibly impressive, intense days at our base camp. Over a plate of potatoes, more potatoes, we told each other our stories and we're so happy. Life is so beautiful."
Yeah, I love potatoes.
Yeah, you love Well, it's clear, I don't know if it's clear to you, but it's clear to everyone else, whether it's a man or a woman, an adult or a child, that you are now a kind of role model. And particularly, I think, for young girls, you are a role model. What, if you could, and I'm sure you do, what would you say to young girls?
Luckily, many young girls come to my presentations. I'm very happy about this, and I try to give them the right spirit to find their own passion, that they have to listen into their heart and to find their own passion and their own goals. It doesn't matter what it is, not climbing 8,000 meter peaks, but maybe mountaineering, climbing, or playing music. I think most important is to get to feel enthusiasm for what you are doing, and I think they understand, and they will do it in their way.
I suspect they do understand, yes. Thank you, Gerlinde. Thanks for taking the extra time to answer some questions. Ladies and gentlemen,
It's a pleasure.
Gerlinde.
Thank you very much.